I think this team is better than the 2024 team. They were a very lucky team last year that happened to be a good team. This year is also a good team that has bad luck and some very specific weaknesses, and that's how you end up at 6-6. They can't get pressure with 4, and they know it. It's also now affected their ability to get pressure when they blitz. They're one of the least effective teams in the league when they blitz. You can't just run the same short game stuff that you've been doing for 2 years. You've got to take some over-the-top shots to Tyquan Thornton. They have got to start adapting what it is they do. I hope to see them just try to run them over and then let Mahomes take over.
So in today's video, I have a very candid conversation with Seth Kaiser of KCSN about the desperate state the Chiefs currently find themselves in. We discuss the biggest problems that got them here on both sides of the ball and what they can try to change or adapt as they deal with a banged up O-line against one of the best defenses in all of football in a win or Cancun game this Sunday. So let's get into it. But first, how about those? All right, Seth, the last time we talked, it was after the Colts game. It was an overtime win, and it's like, hey, things are looking a little bit better here. You need to beat the Cowboys on Thanksgiving, and then you're in a pretty decent spot, even though you need to win most of these games. Well, the Chiefs did not win on Thanksgiving, and now it is almost, I'm calling this a win or Cancun game, essentially, because going to 6-7, your playoff hopes, depending on where you look, it's like 10, 15% if you lose this game. So this is a must-win game, obviously. We've been saying it. This is a bit of a problematic matchup for me with the Chiefs' banged-up O-line, the Texans' D-line being elite. You have beat the Texans twice. You beat them last year with Joe Thuney at left tackle. So there is elements of this matchup that I'm like, okay, well, the Chiefs have figured it out before, but they have also been on the right side, I guess, of luck or execution on these one-score games, and it's kind of been the inverse this season so far. But I wanted to get your initial thoughts on, just because it's been a couple weeks since we've connected, how are you feeling? What are you seeing on the film with, let's go Chiefs defense and what they could potentially try to work on, fix, improve upon for this Texans game?
One of the things for me is they don't get a consistent 4-man pass rush. And that's been a problem for them all year. And because it's gone on long enough and teams are wise to that, it's also now affected their ability to get pressure when they blitz. There's numbers making the rounds right now that they're one of the least effective teams in the league when they blitz. And they blitz at a pretty high percentage. Well, those two things are correlated. When you blitz a ton, by necessity, that is going to decrease the efficacy of the blitz. They have to blitz to get pressure, and other teams know it. And what that means is anytime an opposing team is in an obvious passing down situation, they know a blitz is coming, which takes away the element of surprise, which is one of the primary advantages of a blitz is, oh, they don't know how many we're sending. These days, teams know they're sending at least 5 and maybe 6. And that's a real problem. And one of the best plays to see an example of this, Shamari Connor being left on an island against CeeDee Lamb. The thing that people missed in their outrage about Shamari Connor is watch how the Cowboys on that snap handle Trent McDuffie's blitz. They've got their protection sorted out in advance to account for him and account for some other games that Spags was playing up front there. That's the problem that they're facing when they blitz, is teams know that it's coming. If you're disguising, but they know that you're blitzing, the disguise is just kind of much ado about nothing. It's not fooling anyone. So that's the problem that I'm seeing on film. They can't get pressure with 4, and they know it. And so one last thing I see on film that's frustrating for me, and I wrote about this week, is the lack of stunts and twists along the defensive line. They're dead last in the league at it. Your basic stunt, you're just attacking a different gap than what you're showing, and usually in a way that allows for some kind of crisscrossing. They don't run a lot of stunts because they value rush lane integrity. They want to crush the pocket while leaving nowhere to run. The problem for me is 4-man rush just isn't working. You don't necessarily need elite guys if you have a good stunt game that you're running a fair amount of the time. Not every time, but it slows down the offensive line. It makes them think more.
You talked about the blitz just not being as effective as it has been in previous years. So I have a little find here from, it's not just Mina Kimes that's been talking about this, but she recently shared that the Chiefs, when blitzing, 31st in yards per play allowed, 28th in pressure rate, 31st in sack rate. But in 22 through 24, those 3 seasons, they were first, second, and third in those metrics and comparisons. So combine that with what you said. The four-man pass rush is struggling, and they got worse recently because I don't know why people aren't talking about this enough, I don't think, but George Karlaftis is in he's not in a full club, but his hand's like an 80% club.
Yep.
He's been on the other side and struggling over there. I think Karlaftis with the club has made an already struggling pass rush that much worse because over the last 4 games, I mean, their sack rate, 32nd in the NFL. And they're blitzing 4th most in the NFL over the last 4 games. Their pressure to sack rate is 32nd in the league. I think that's just the main culprit of why they also can't get off the field on 3rd downs. Price Carter, he shared, a Verahide addict, he shared a stat of how bad the Chiefs are. Their defense is on 3rd and long, so 3rd and 7 or more, 30th in yards per play allowed, 30th in EPA per play, 21st in pressures, 31st in passer rating allowed, and 27th in sacks. So it's been a big issue. And I think it was also Dan Orlovsky. I don't like the absolute tweets that people do because it's a multifaceted problem why the Chiefs are losing these games. But he shared a tweet saying this is why the Chiefs are losing games. And it was like 5 examples of the defense in these close one-score games not being able to either close it out or get the ball back to Patrick Mahomes and that offense that is really high-flying this year compared to the last couple of years in particular. I think if the Chiefs are going to want to win, and this is where I struggle with this Texans game, they're going to have to carry, I think, on the offensive side of the ball a bit. But is there anything else they could do on defense in this game, specifically against the Texans, in your opinion, to be a little bit more effective? I mean, they were really effective against the Colts. C.J. Stroud is back after a 3-game hiatus due to the concussion, and he played okay last week. He was rusty, but I would still put C.J. Stroud a little bit over Daniel Jones as far as quarterback play goes.
One thing that Jones and Stroud have in common is that they haven't shown an ability to play well against well-executed simulated pressures. Stroud, that's one area where I've noticed that, and we'll see, teams have been getting the Chiefs in these areas, but that's where against Daniel Jones, they started running quite a few simulated pressures, and Jones didn't know how to deal with it. He just did not have the ability to sort through it. I would love to see them dial up an aggressive simulated pressure and stunt-based plan and force Stroud to show that he and his offensive line can work through stuff. Another thing that's worth noting, his offensive line is terrible. I mean, their offensive line might be as bad as the Chiefs' backup offensive line that's basically going to be on the field right now. And honestly, I think I would take the current rendition of the Chiefs' offensive line over what the Texans have.
They've had 4 different left guards, 4 different right guards, and 4 different right tackle combos this season. They've had the same rotation the last couple of games now. This might be game number 3 with the similar. But just to echo what you're saying, if you think Chiefs fans are, we rightfully so should be worried, but because you're down a few linemen, if you think you should be worried about that, the Texans have had 0 stability for their offensive line this year.
Yeah, and it's affected them a ton. So you might actually see a bounce back game from the pass rush. The pass rush has looked much better, although that was before Karlaftis was hurt, against bad offensive lines. And so we might see a bounce back from that. Or if you see because they don't have anyone that can block Chris Jones.
He's got to win.
My assumption is they're going to be sliding protections his way all game and daring anyone else. And that's where Karlaftis or Amenahu, maybe Gelati, but that's just not who he's been this year. Someone's got to win some one-on-ones, and they've got to affect, especially on 3rd downs, because that really is, they've been a good 3rd down defense for years. Even when they play a bunch of bend, don't break, that type stuff, they're a bad 3rd down defense this year. And it's part of why, in addition to the offense playing the way it does, it's why the Chiefs are playing these 8-drive, 9-drive games. That they're shortening the games. And you know what that means is it makes luck play a much bigger role, because the smaller a sample size is, the bigger a deal luck becomes. So if you only have 8 drives in a game versus 11 or 12, 1 fumble, the ball bouncing a weird way, 1 drop, 1 bad call, it suddenly is over, it's 15% of the game as opposed to less. And that's why last year, I think this team is better than the 2024 team. When I watch the offense is significantly better. The defense, I don't think is that much worse. They are a little worse, especially on 3rd down. But the luck thing has been a huge part of it. They were so lucky last year. And that's where, honestly, I think last year was a little bit of fool's gold. Great fool's gold. I mean, they made it all the way to the Super Bowl, but they were a very lucky team last year that happened to be a good team. This year is also a good team that has bad luck and some very specific weaknesses, and that's how you end up at 6-6.
Sometimes it's a coin flip on if you can execute. They have the 4th fewest takeaways as well, which doesn't help, so you can't get off the field on 3rd downs. You're not getting a lot of takeaways on defense, and that's why fans are saying, well, the Chiefs' defense is still good. They're the 7th best scoring defense in the NFL, and I do think it's largely an offensive stat helping with that because the Chiefs have the longest time of possession, the most plays per drive, their points per drive extremely high, and they're moving the chains quite a bit, even though they've struggled recently on 3rd downs. But the Chiefs' offense is having to matriculate the ball down the field and just slowly but surely move the ball down the field and score. And I think where they've struggled too on offense is just they were 3 for 3 in the red zone against the Cowboys, but the last 2 games, they were 1 for 4, 1 for 5, and then 1 for 6 in the red zone their prior 2 games. So you're not finishing a lot of these drives with 7. You're ending up with 3, and you're still really close in these games. If you flip side to the offense here, we're down multiple linemen. You are against a very good Texans defense. I mean, Will Anderson Jr., Danielle Hunter, those guys are top 2, top 4 in pressures, top 5 in win percentage. You played a really good Texans team last year with Joe Thuney at left tackle and Mike Caliendo at left guard, and you won both. Where are you at with that? Because it's not just you're moving the best guard in football to left tackle where he's serviceable. You have multiple problems now on both sides. No Josh Simmons. You have no Trey Smith potentially. No Juwan Taylor potentially. So you're going to have Wanye at left tackle and Jalen Moore at right tackle and Caliendo at right guard. What's going on?
Nobody knows what's going on with that. I don't understand it.
And before I get to the rest of this conversation with Seth, I've got to shout out the sponsor of today's video, Underdog, of course, the best and easiest place to play fantasy sports. And I've got 3 picks that I feel really good about for this upcoming game against the Texans, starting with the higher on Patrick Mahomes' 31.5 pass attempts. He's hit that number in their last 6 games, and I think the Chiefs are going to have to go quick passes against Houston's crazy D-line, which in theory would mean even more attempts from Mahomes. That's why I also like the higher on Rashee Rice's 5.5 receptions. He's hit that in 5 of the 6 games that he's played in this year. Plus, he's coming off of back-to-back games with 12 targets. And finally, the Texans kicker, Keami Fairbairn, he's made at least 2 field goals in his last 7 games, which is why the higher on his 1.5 field goals feels like a lock to me. And if you agree with me on these, you can tail by clicking the link in the description or in the pinned comment down below. You can also make your own picks by selecting higher or lower on your favorite player stats for a chance to win up to 5,000x on your money. Just make sure you use my code HBTC, where any new signup can play just $5 and get $100 in bonus funds plus a gimme pick in the lobby.
Nobody knows what's going on with that. I don't understand it. It's a weird decision by the team, in my opinion. I hear people saying, oh, you know, they want to see if he can do it in 2026. They want to see if Jalen Moore can play right tackle. If they don't know that whether or not, after him being in the building for this long, whether he can play right tackle, someone should lose their job. I mean, he did it throughout the preseason. They have plenty of data as to whether he can play right tackle. So I think that's a ridiculous answer. And so does Mitch Schwartz, for what it's worth.
He's been in all the comments saying he disagrees. That's not where their strong suit is for either of those guys. Could it be because they don't want Caliendo and Wanye next to each other?
I thought that for a while, and then Schwartz's take on that is that it's actually easier to protect a side of the line than each side, than having a weakness in both spots. So I thought that was interesting. His play style is more right tackle than left tackle. Jalen Moore's is a little more left tackle than right tackle if you look at the traditional ways that guys win in terms of strength versus a little more technique and athleticism, all that. One thing that might make sense to me is they look at the Texans defense and they say, man, their pass rush is really good. We've got a straight ahead downhill runner in Kareem Hunt, and we've got another guy now on board in Dameon Pierce. Isaiah Pacheco's back. Well, Caliendo's not really a mauler on the right side, and Jalen Moore's not really a mauler. Wanya Morris in the run game is a mauler.
Okay.
That's one thing where, he's not nearly as athletic as Josh Simmons, but he can maul straight ahead almost as well. Maybe even as well. You put him next to next to Kingsley Suamataia,
who is a mauler.
Yes, Suamataia, that's his strength. And so maybe what we might be about to see, this would blow my mind and it would be really encouraging because it would show growth, would be if Andy Reid looks at what he's seen and is just like, we need to run the ball 45 times down their throat and left side.
Strong side.
Left side! Strong side!
Left side, strong side. And that would be one reason to do it. And honestly, the only reason that would make sense to me. The thing is, they don't have a drop back passing game. And so teams do know that when you're lining up under center, it's play action boot or it's a run.
Yep.
So that makes it tough, but they're going to have to fold in some iterations of that.
What do you do with trying to manage the quick passing game to keep the defense honest a little bit, right? Because that's what they had to do last year with those pass rushers. You got to get the ball out quick. But also, the Texans are just so good in the secondary. They're not afraid to play man. And the Chiefs have struggled quite a bit in comparison against man on offense compared to zone. I mean, they're eating people alive in zone, where the Texans are like, hey, we're not afraid to play man at all. Mahomes said in his presser, you've got to establish the run. You got to get the ball out quick. And when opportunities present themselves, you not only have to take shots down the field, but you have to hit them. I feel like if they have opportunities downfield, it's going to be very few because that pass rush is going to be, they're going to be getting after Mahomes here. With that in mind, what are you doing? If you're Andy Reid and Mahomes, like, what's the game plan here?
I think you've got to take some over-the-top shots to Tyquan Thornton. I think he needs to be actually looped into the game plan in a meaningful way. I think he should be lined up on the boundary, and you should be checking for single high looks all day. Now, the problem is, like a guy like Stingley covers really well down the field. But you got to at least test it out. You got to see how they play it. One thing they can't do, in my opinion, and maybe they can scheme it up so well they're able to get away with it, you can't just run the same short game stuff that you've been doing for 2 years. You can't do it. You could actually see a difference. They played Houston twice down the stretch last year, and this was once the Joe Thuney experiment had begun. And so they played them late in the season, and the offense actually had some success against them. And that's when people were talking about, oh, Thuney's like an all-pro left tackle too. I was like, nope, they were getting rid of the ball in like under 2 seconds constantly. And that's no diss on Thuney, who's having a phenomenal season in Chicago, which is the least surprising thing. But that's just how it was. The Chiefs offense had a pretty good game against that really good Texans defense the first time. The second time, it wasn't as good. Now, part of it, they were a little bit healthier, but part of it is they were starting to kind of employ some of what you see the Broncos and some of what you see the Raiders even, maybe not so much this year because that was a massacre, but what you've seen in recent years with teams that are really familiar with the Chiefs or like the Bills, where they are just trying to suffocate those first 5 yards, and they're closing in on that horizontal stretch stuff, those quick throws to the sideline. And if those gain 4 yards instead of 7 yards, it's a game changer. They were just better with that. And that's why the Chiefs defense needed to have a really good game. And Mahomes had to do a few ungodly things for them to win that game. You've got to change it up. You can have a short passing attack, but run some slants. Run some quick man-beating routes that don't rely on time, like crossers, mesh. That's the stuff that they keep running against man, and that stuff takes time to develop, and you're not going to have that kind of time. So again, and this is like the answer to everything, they have got to start adapting what it is they do.
They need Rice and or whoever else, pick another guy, Hollywood, somebody to look themselves in the mirror every single day this week and say, I am George Pickens. And just believe it when you walk out on the field. George Pickens just goes slant, slant, slant.
And here's the funny thing is, Rice isn't a huge receiver, but he's a decent sized receiver who plays very strong and very tough. And now he's got concentration issues at times with drops, but he can make tough catches. He can play physical. He's a guy that I think they should be throwing 3 or 4 slants to. Maybe not a game, because that's just not the way football works when you're not playing Madden. But he should be at least getting 1 or 2 every game. If you've got someone manned up that isn't doing pure inside leverage, give them a chance to just wall them off and trust him with it a little. And so they've got a guy they can trust with that. Whether or not they do something about it, we'll see.
Hey, if you're enjoying this conversation with Seth, you're going to want to subscribe to his Chief in the North newsletter. He's dropping multiple articles every single week, and he breaks things down in such a super simple way that really any fan can understand. And if you click the link in the description down below, you can get 60% off forever. It's like $12 a year. Well worth it, in my opinion. Obviously, the Chiefs lose. I think there's probably a small chance you could sneak in if you went out, but you're going to need help for some other teams to lose some games. Where are you at with this based on the injuries for the Chiefs and how the Texans are playing? Are you confident they can win this game?
I'm less confident than I was against the Cowboys.
Okay.
And so that's rough. And it's really unfortunate, the injury timing, but by dropping at least 4 games that they 100% should have won, they put themselves in this position. So I'm back to kind of coin flip status. The Texans aren't a terrific team, but they're playing well right now. Stroud's a good player. Their offense has just enough good players to get things done, even with that offensive line being bad. They're kind of like the Broncos, except with a better quarterback. We'll kind of see how it goes, and that includes having a guy who has a particular skill set that could give the Chiefs some problems. It's Sutton with the Broncos, and it's Collins with the Texans. Yep. They've traditionally done pretty well against Collins, but he's just a great, great player. So I'm coin flipping it. It won't shock me if they win, but definitely won't shock me if they lose.
I am hopeful that home field advantage helps because they've been way better at home this year and way less penalized. They are the second or third most penalized team on the road, tied for third, I think, fewest penalized team at home, and they've just played way better. Most of their wins have been at home this year, so that is a thing that I'm taking into consideration here in this game. It's like the 3 teams that you have out of the 5 that are tough, it's at home, and then the Titans and Raiders are on the road. So if you can... it's like wishful thinking because it doesn't always carry over game to game, but home field advantage is a real thing at Arrowhead.
Yes.
And even like that Broncos game, you look at Mahomes and then like they're rushing to the line and Mahomes doesn't even have time to do like adjust his protection or even sometimes audible. He's just clapping for the ball. There's like 3 seconds left.
Yep. They time the snap that way.
Mahomes is going to have to carry it, man. It's one of those things where you look at it on paper and I look at the Eagles game, the Super Bowl, and I'm like, well, I don't know. I think the Chiefs can win this game because the Mahomes factor, but obviously that went really bad. I am anticipating a close game. It's not going to be a bloodbath one way or the other, I don't think. It's interesting. Most people are picking the Chiefs to win this game, but it's mostly a lower scoring affair, 1-score game. Got to play a clean game. I think the defense needs a takeaway or 2 if you could possibly do it. They have the 4th fewest on the year, I think, of any teams in takeaways, but you've had opportunities. Nick Bolton had a drop. Mike Edwards almost was able to pick off Dak. So there was multiple opportunities, and you've got to take advantage of that if you can and give the Chiefs offense more opportunities because we might see more punts out of the Chiefs offense than we want just because of the O-line and how good that Texans defense is. But if you can give Mahomes and them a couple more opportunities, I think it could make or break the game.
Absolutely. I hope to see them just try to run them over and see what happens. They're a good aggressive defense, so they're not going to be easy to run over. But that's your best shot with a Morris, Suamataia, Humphrey, is to run them over, get them out of their initial game plan, and then let Mahomes take over.
Well, Seth, thanks again for your time, man. If you guys are not subscribed to Seth's Substack, Chief in the North newsletter, it's awesome, dropping multiple pieces every single week. You do it in a way where anybody can understand, from a casual fan all the way to somebody who studies film. You're a great writer and communicator, and I really appreciate you coming on every couple of weeks here during the season, and hopefully the next time we talk, it's with the Chiefs very much still alive in the playoff race.
Yeah, hopefully next time we talk, we're talking about an 8-6 record and how a couple teams have lost that we wanted to lose.
How about those Chiefs?